Alright guys, welcome to the Doombringer set review for Sapphire. Today we'll be going over the Sapphire cards and their playability in Constructed. This means like the CCS, the Hex Bash, and Arcanium Vault. I will not be going over limited cards. I will not be going over Immortal playability in Immortal, and I will not be going over the Fusion cards. The reason is because the Fusion there's a ton of Fusion cards, and the termini they make is, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like over 150 combinations. I'm not gonna go over all those to see which ones are playable because I only believe like a handful are playable, like maybe 3 or 4 are playable. Instead, what you're gonna get is the best evaluation ever for constructed playability. All right, let's start. Briny Toad, 3 cost, 3/1, 1 shot. Discard a card. This gets flight. Limited. Moving on. Cuttleclaws. 2 cost. Quick action. Opposing troops get -3 attack this turn. Fate Weave. Limited. Let's keep going. Dreamsmoke Diva. 3 cost. 2/2. Flight. Spell Shield. Both very... Flight and Spell Shield are very powerful. Rowdy. Look at cards from the top of your deck equal to this troop's cost. Put one of them into your hand, put the remaining cards into your deck. This card is a sweet combination with the Rowdy Piper, because then you can play the blue-green card that resets all Rowdy cards. The fact that it doesn't trigger when it first comes into play is kind of annoying. That makes it really good. Like, I would trade Spell Shield for it to come to play. I would trade Spell Shield and Flight if it could trigger its ability when it first came into play. The fact that it doesn't is kind of hurtful, but it lets you... This is a good card in combination with Rowdy Piper. It lets you like start like chaining your Rowdies, replenishing your resources, refilling your hand, and just doing some fun, crazy Sapphire Wall shenanigans. It's a fun card. As far as how good it is, it's going to depend on what combo you can find with this and Rowdy Piper. By itself, I don't think it's good enough. I don't think you can just jam this in your like Sapphire control deck. Out of reserves, sure. Out of reserves, I can see it. But main deck, you just want Heart's Whisper. The reason we want Heart's Whisper is because Heart's Whisper refills you right away, and it reduces the cost of like Ascension. But against decks like Mono Blood, this is a great card. But not one you want to play main deck unless you're like going off with it with like Rowdy Piper basically or other Rowdy cards. False Confession, 3 cost, quick action, interrupt target troop. If you control a Ruby Threshold, deal 3 damage to each opposing champion. This card is playable. It reminds me a lot of Stifling Sting. But it's just strictly for troops. It's not for enough cards that cost 3 less, just strictly for troops. It's playable, but I don't think it's that good. Like I don't believe it's tier 1. I don't think we have enough cards to be able to play a counter burn deck just yet. Then again, we do have Candlelight, which does deal 6 damage straight to the opponent's face. So interesting. We have Candlelight and Sabertooth. An Oath of Anguish, which discards your hand, makes burns. Is it better than Stifling Sting? I don't know. Interesting card. Possibly playable in that archetype, in that like counter burn archetype where you basically like counter spells and burn your opponent out with Candlelights or Stifling Sting or Burns or Matriarch of Flame, whatever you want. This is the only place that card is playable. It it's not. Limited, maybe limited, but as far as constructed, this is the only deck it's playable in. Yes, Sting only hits action. This is very interesting actually. It's interesting, but again, it's only playable in the Sapphire Ruby deck. The burn archetype. It's called counter burn or whatever. I'm not sure if we have enough cards for it. But that's where it would be played. Flummox, 2 costs, quick action. Interrupt target card with cost equal to or less than the highest card amongst cards you control. Maybe in like a Sapphire wild tempo deck, where you basically playing like playing things at quick speed, like Pipit Hustler. This card really wants Brown Fox Scout. Basically, when you're playing like things at quick speed, you can be like, okay, I'm playing a troop. If you don't play anything, if you played something, I'll flummox you. The fact that we don't have Brown Fox Scout kind of stinks, but this card can still be played in those decks, just because we do have some 3-cost quick troops. We do have Pipit Hustler. We do have Tranquil Seedheart, which is also quick. So this card is it might see play. I think it really wants Brown Fox Scout to be really good. But I mean, the longer this is constructed, and the more quick troops we get over time, the better this card will get. Forbidden Archive, 1 cost, constant. You can pay 4 any time to draw a card and then discard a card. This is too much for the ability. This is way too much. This needs to be like 2. Cool art, but this costs too much. This costs too much to be good. Glaciate. Transform target opposing card into an ice block. Let's pull up ice block. Ice block is this. So you turn a card into a constant that they had to pay 5 at basic, which is very relevant to revert it. So it's basically like a temporary removal spell. I mean, I like this card. This card is great because like you can just ice block that. You can like Glaciate that, Glaciate this, Glaciate that one, and then like by turn 6, just go, okay, you know what? Now that you're starting to thaw out your cards, I'm just gonna annihilate you. I'm gonna Clash of Steel you. Or I'm gonna play Darkheart Milzan. So this card is very playable. Gruesome Gobbler, 5 cost, 3/3, flight, life drain if you control a blood threshold. This is not playable. Not playable and constructed. 5 cost, 5/4. Sockable Miner, Deathcry. Put 2 random cards from your crypt into your deck and gain 2 charges. Put 2 random ones? 2 charges? No. No, discard. Lost in the City. I should say maybe because of the allegiance. It being Underworld is good for the Underworld Crusader. So maybe you want to fill that role. Necrotic's also a valuable typing, because there's the champion that looks at necrotic troops. So if this sees play, is because of that, and not as much its ability. Lost in the City, quick action. Put up 2 target opposing troops into the controller's hand. No, not good enough for constructed playable. For constructed. Lunar Resonance, 2 cost, constant. At the start of your turn, if you control a card of each shard, void this and take an additional turn after this one. So if you control, like, if you happen to control a troop that is all 5 thresholds, that's great. But we don't have that. We have like Doombringer Ka, we have Oinkers a Party Pig. This card is really hard to trigger because all the troops that have like 3 or more thresholds cost a lot. This card is cool. I love extra turns, guys. You guys know that. I don't think this one makes it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for myself too, because a 2 cost extra turn spell is pretty sweet. Mistcloak Apocalyte, 4 cost, 4/2, spell shield. Spell shield is very good, so I'm sure this card will be fused with something good. Nutsnatch Raven. Okay. 1 cost, 1/1 flying. Deploy. Create a Grand Squirrel Titan and put it into your hand. Huh. Interesting. I think this is good and limited. A Grand Squirrel Titan is like a 6/6 squirrel for 6. Or maybe you can like play this and hold up Flummox. No, I don't think this card is good enough. Sweet card, limited though. Party Crasher. Even the Venan can party, man. Look at this. The Merry Caravan takes anybody. If you just want to have fun and not worry, just get like high and, you know, like have some good times. They'll take you. Alright, Party Crasher. 2 cost, 2/1. Rowdy. Target to be controlled gets unblockable this turn. No, not good enough for constructed. Prison the Mind. Cool art. X, blue X. You need to control a Sapphire threshold. Stun up to X target troops. Not good enough for constructed. I'm sure this is gonna be a blowout in limited though. Like you build a big board, maybe with Rico. You're like, all right, Frico charge power. Now stun that, and that. Alpha strike you. Untap. Alpha strike you. So limited, great. Constructed, no. Reflection of Deandra. 5 cost, 5/4, 2 sockets. When this attacks, you may have each champion draw or discard a card. So if you play this card, you absolutely put the blue gem that says this can't be targeted by opposing cards with cost 2 or less. The reason being just because you don't want this card to get strangled. That's 4 toughness. Don't get strangled. And as far as the major, you can put a sorcery, vanishing. Vanishing makes it like bounce back your hand, discard a card. Interesting. I don't think this card's good enough. Cards like Alchemite, I think are better than this card. I like Alchemite more than this card. So I'm gonna say no to this card. Scour the Archives. Prison Mind looks good in a Rowdy combo deck. I think you'd rather play a Wildlife. Wildlife is just better in your Rowdy deck. You just make like a bunch of troops, then untap the resources. Scour the Archives. Basic action. If you have a card in your crypt named Scour the Archives, search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. Otherwise, draw a card. I think the card's great. It's gonna be one. It's the first card we see that lets you do this in PvP. It's a great combo card. It's a great card in control decks. Great card in mid-range decks. It's even better if you can like Blue Sparrow and just discard the first one right away. Or if you have a way to discard the first one so you don't have to cast it. It's even better then. Basically gives you like 3 tutors in your deck, which is very powerful. This card is good, guys. This card is very good. It's gonna enable some shenanigans for sure. This is probably the best Sapphire card in the set. Shenanigator. 3 cost, 2/2, Rowdy, draw card. Limited only. I don't think you want like Dreamsmoke Diva is better than this card. So this is limited only. Silent Auctioneer, 1 cost, 0/3. When a champion discards a card, bury cards at the top of each champion's deck equal to this card's cost. I know there's some sort of like combo of this card that you can mill your opponent out in 1 turn after you draw your whole deck with absolute power. And then discard your hand, you can mill them out. When a champion discards a card. Yeah, so basically with this you can basically absolute power, draw your whole deck, play this card, pass a turn, and just start discarding cards and milling your opponent out. Even if they have Robogoyle, it doesn't really matter because you're discarding like 50 cards. On its own, I do not believe it's good enough. I don't know, maybe it is actually. Maybe it's good enough. Maybe you can play this turn 1. Actually, maybe this is a good way to combat like control decks. If you're playing like a Reanimator deck with like Theorize, like Change Course and Blue Sparrow, and just like an Alchemite and ways to discard cards, or maybe you're playing like a Sapphire Ruby deck, this could be a good card out of the reserves against control decks. You just play this card and you start like gradually milling them. So this is a combo with absolute power. Obviously, I'm sure it's a combo with something else. And it's a good reserves card if you are a deck that like loots a lot. It's also good if you're a bury deck in your reserves against the deck that loots a lot, because like you're burying them, which is you're fueling them, but then like when they start casting Theorize and discard like a Gargolith, they're gonna mill 8 cards. So this card is good. Good in reserves and good in the infinite combo deck. Not infinite combo, but mill like 500 cards deck. Also, this art's pretty gruesome. Nearly anything can be bought or sold in the twisted bazaars of the nameless city. They're selling a baby. That's dark. Alright, Skywing Apocalyte. 2 cost, 1/2 fusion. You guys know my stance on fusions. Stormsight Apocalyte. Fusion, lethal damage to opposing champion. Draw a card. Oh, this one I like. I'm not sure what you can combine it with, but this is sweet. Treacherous Search. This card is so versatile. Alright, Treacherous Search costs X. It's blue Sapphire. You control 1 Sapphire. You can pay X, look at the top X cards of your deck, and put one of them into your hand. So early on, you're always paying too much for this card. If you're paying 1, it's a worse Arcane Focus. If you're paying 2, it's a worse Change Course. If you're paying 3, it's basically like a worse Heart's Whisper. If you're paying 4, it's essentially a worse, Peak or whatever. Or basically, no matter when you're casting this, you're almost always overpaying for it. But the thing is, it's just so versatile. Like early on, you can just cycle this to get try to shard drop. Then late game, you can get, like in a turn, you can just put 8 resources into it. Be like, okay, it's time for me to find my Psychic Ascension, and just dump all your mana into it. There'll also be times when you have like a Psychic Ascension in your hand that costs 8, and you have only 7 resources. So you play this for 0, make Psychic Ascension cost 0, or make Psychic Ascension cost 7, then play that turn. This card is just so versatile. Obviously not as versatile as Runebind, but it's a good card. This card is definitely, it's just, you're always overpaying for the card, but the versatility is what Sapphire decks want. Zeota's Seance. 1 cost, constant, rowdy Fate Weave. I think this card is pretty legit in a Hailstorm deck. Hailstorm deck has been lacking some way to constantly Fate Weave, or a good way to constantly Fate Weave. So you basically just hold this card, you play your Hailstorm, the following turn you play the Seance, and just start casting your spells and just making Hailhawks. I think this card is good in a Hailstorm deck. So there you go, Hailstorm deck, Seance, the Auto Seance deck. Okay, alright guys, that is it for the Sapphire cards. If you liked watching the set review on YouTube, make sure you follow and subscribe, like, whatever you want to do. If you guys feel free to leave comments. I'll be doing a set review for every set that comes out. And this is for you guys, so if you guys have any like suggestions or comments or any way you think I can improve, let me know, because this is literally for you. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm just doing it for the Hex community. So hope you enjoy, and I'll see you guys later.